And welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Stephanie Wolf, and I am the Membership Relations Coordinator. Today's event is hosted by Population Connection, along with our sister organization, Population Connection Action Fund. And it's so great to see so many of our wonderful supporters tuning in for the final virtual event of 2025. We truly could not do this important work without our incredible donors and supporters. We are a membership-based organization, meaning all of the programs that we will be talking about today are made possible by the support of dedicated members. If you haven't joined already, I do hope you'll consider joining today if you can. The link will be dropped in the chat box, and I will share it again after the event. Now, to introduce our speakers. On the call, we have Pam Wasserman, Senior VP for Education, who will delve into our population education program and the latest resources for students and educators. Marian Starkey, our VP for Communications, will give an overview of this year's outreach efforts and share updates on our Global Partners program. Then Brian Dixon, Senior VP for Government and Political Affairs, will touch on the reproductive health and rights landscape. And to wrap up, Rebecca Harrington, Senior Director of Advocacy and Outreach, will discuss our sister organization's mobilizing efforts and our joint Fight for Her campaign. If you have any questions for any of our speakers, please drop them in the Q&A box found at the very bottom of your screen. We will do our very best to get those answered during the Q&A session, which is facilitated by our senior analyst, Hannah Evans. And then for any questions we don't have time to answer live, we will provide written responses along with a recording of this presentation, the presentation slides, and access to the chat box discussion. Now, those are all the housekeeping items from me. I will send it over to Pam to get us started.
Okay, so someone else is sharing, so let me see.
Yeah, just stop sending it over to you now.
Okay. Okay, can everybody see that?
Looks
Okay,
good.
good. Well, I want to first thank everybody for helping to make this a great year for PopEd. I know many of you have been on these calls before, and some of this, will be familiar to you. I know a couple of months ago, two of my colleagues walked you through our student video contest. So I'm just gonna touch on that a little bit. But I wanted to share with you all the wonderful work we've been doing with reaching teachers through our workshops and our curriculum development this year. So let's see. To start off, I wanted to talk about our workshops because I see that as sort of the cornerstone of the work that we do in population education. We develop great materials, but it's meaningless if we don't get them out there. And, it took a while to recover from the pandemic lull of teachers going to conferences and university classes being held in person. But 2025, we're back to where we were, I'm happy to say, before the pandemic. And we're going to finish this year having presented over 700 workshops for teachers and future teachers around the country. So that's a great benchmark for us. And it takes several months after the year's end to get all the materials and attendance totals back from our volunteer trainers around the country. But our projection is that we will have reached about 11,000 educators this year. So that's a great feat. And these take place all over the country, 46 states plus DC, 5 Canadian provinces. And our staff is traveling to many of these places, but we couldn't do it without our network of volunteers all over who represent us in their local regions. We also do a summer graduate course for middle and high school teachers. It's condensed into 4 weeks, but we have given it over the course of a full semester too. Teachers seem to like the summer format because they don't have a lot of other things they're juggling So that's become the one we stuck with. So pretty much the full month of July. And those folks go on to often become trainers, although it's also just, helpful for them in their own teaching with students. And if you know of any teachers who might be interested, we have the information up on our population education website, and they can get graduate credit for that through Adams State University in Colorado. This is just a map to show you, the breadth of where we were over the course of the year, all over the country. We still want to get some contacts in Alaska and Hawaii, so we could start doing more there. But we cover the continental U.S. Pretty well, and a number of places in Canada too. So I mentioned that we have volunteer trainers, and they do a big chunk of the workshops, more than half of them that we present over the course of the year. And we hold train the trainer institutes. We did 2 in 2025, and these are periods of time to bring in folks who have expressed interest in representing us in their local area. Some of them have already been involved in Pop Ed, having sponsored workshops where we come into their university classes, or perhaps they've seen our other trainers in conferences and they want to get involved. So the 2 we held this year, the first one was in the summer in Los Angeles. It was on the campus of UCLA. Wonderful bunch of new trainers there, and about half of them were from California, which was our goal. The other one, which we just had last month, was in the Orlando area in Winter Park, Florida. And again, we really wanted to target teachers in Florida to get them active. And as you might imagine, very different audiences, different events, and different challenges that teachers in those states are working in. But we also had participants fly in from all over. So 24 states in Canada. And now we have 60 new trainers who are already starting to get active for us. So that's great. Every year we're working on curriculum projects. Some of these are brand new items. Some of them are updates of curricula, which we've had for a long time. The first one on that list, Earth Matters, Studies for Our Global Future. I worked on the first version of that over 30 years ago. And so, every few years we go back and we look at what needs to be updated, because this is for high school students. It's a lot of data, so there is always a lot to rework. And we're just finishing up on all new readings for the students, case studies, updates to our lesson plans. So and because it's all digital, we just put the new parts of the content up as we finish it, but it'll be all complete within the next couple of months. People in the Planet is our middle school curricula, and that's in progress right now. Also, readings for the students, lesson plans, background materials for teachers. And then I just wanted to highlight the 2 other items on this list are to make our materials more inclusive. Nuestro Mundo is a bilingual Spanish-English kit that we've had for a number of years, but we've been expanding it and taking teacher feedback on ways to enhance that and make a lot of the activities more culturally relevant. And we're now trying to make more of our activities scaffolded for English language learners. Sometimes they're called multilingual learners, because you'd be hard pressed to find any school in the country where that population is not represented. So we're trying to help build the communication and language skills while we're introducing the population education content. So many of our online curricula now, you'll see buttons telling you that there's a scaffolded version for helping English language learners. We also exhibit our materials at major teacher conventions. Because science and social studies are the broad areas where population education fits in, those are the conventions that we choose to go to and meet with teachers. Just last weekend, our team, fortunately, the convention was here. It was the National Council for the Social Studies. And I wish we had a tape recorder because it's always great for when teachers come by and they tell us how they're using our materials, wanting to know what we have that's new. But it's always like, a feel good time because we put the materials out there and now to hear how teachers have been using them and maybe using them for a number of years. Um, the first convention we did of the year was the National Science Teachers Association. That's the largest event we go to exhibit. So those were both on the East Coast this year. We're in the spring, we're going to be doing the NSTA convention in Anaheim, California, and the Social Studies convention will be in Chicago. So they move it around, and that's great for us because we get to talk with new audiences. We also have just a lot of content on our populationeducation.org website. So I just wanted to point that out. If you're interested or you know teachers who might be interested, we have recordings of some of our webinars. We do some that are just open to the general public. We did one last night on how our materials also teach about ocean education and human impacts on the ocean. But you can find a whole list of on-demand videos there. And we try to build blogs and webinars around different themes for different parts of the school year. So we're finishing up ocean education. Other topics we touched on this year were media literacy in education. That's a big one. Sustainable energy and the world's women. For the beginning of the new year, we're going to be working on place-based education, which is a hot topic for teachers. Lots of new blogs. We put out at least one a week, so you can find those on the website too. And of course, we're on social media as well. So I know you've probably heard about our student video contest. We started it in 2010, and it became so popular, it's an annual event, but we do mix it up every year. We choose different topics. These are like 1-minute PSAs that the students are challenged to create, and they have to link population issues to one of 3 topics. So for the one we finished up in 2025, the topics were sanitation, child well-being, and rainforest ecosystems. And you can see from the infographic, we got over 3,000 videos coming in from students. It's open to middle and high school. But many more students work on the videos because a lot of them work in teams. So almost 5,000 students participated in that contest. It's just wrapped up in May. And we just launched the new one, and I'll tell you about that in a moment. But I always like to put up a slide with the kids' pictures because one of the highlights for our team in Pop Ed is chatting with these students. They put so much effort into these projects, and we love to hear what they're doing. They're all like amazing kids, overachievers, multi-talented. And so if you go to our contest site, which is worldof8billion.org, you can read their bios, you can see their winning videos. These are just pictures of the first and second place winners. We also give prizes for best in state, best in region. This year we reached a high mark on number of countries represented. There were 67 countries that we received submissions from. So that was exciting. And you can see one of the winners was a group of kids from Uzbekistan. One of our top winners was from Uganda. So it's great connecting with those kids. For this year, we just launched the contest in September. We want to give teachers a lot of opportunities to use it as an assignment in class. So they have until March to get their entries in. And our topics for this contest are linking population to energy, to wetlands. We often try to choose a different ecosystem, and economics. And on the contest site, we have lots of subcategories within that to give kids ideas of how to narrow their focus. They're already starting to come in, the entries, and we'll be excited to see all of them. They'll all be in by the beginning of March. And I just wanted to wrap up just reminding everybody that the program started in 1975. So this was our 50th anniversary year, which is really exciting for the team. And If you haven't received it already, and I'm sure Marian's going to talk about the magazine, but the new issue, the one that just dropped, is highlighting the 50 years of pop ed, and you can find out more about the history of the program, what we still do, what's changed. But it was nice in putting that together to kind of reminisce over the years and go back through some of the archival files. So that's what I wanted to share today, and I'll look forward to questions at the end. I am gonna stop sharing.
I am going to start sharing. Thanks, Pam. Okay. All right. Does that look how it should?
Yep.
Okay. Great. Well, thanks for joining us today, everybody. I'm going to be talking about the activities of the communications team this year. This is the four of us, and I just put this up here because I will be talking about people by name. So just wanted to put a face with the names and the titles. So we've got Hannah Evans, who, as you know, is moderating this discussion, and she does most of the moderating of our virtual events. Olivia Nader is our communications manager. She does most of the writing of the communications team puts out. And Florence Blondell is our digital media manager, and she does all of our social media and so much more. And I'll talk about more of the activities specifically as I go on. So I wanted to start with media placements, just because I know this is always top of mind for our members. We got quite a few this year. This is a list of letters to the editor that we had published, articles that mention us and our work, and articles that feature quotes from Brian and me, and I think that's it. And Stephanie's going to send these slides around afterwards, but I just did want to make a note that everywhere where the text is underlined, those are all hyperlinks. So when I'll send her the PDF, and you'll be able to click through tons of different links in this presentation to see the articles and whatever else I'm sharing here. So, and yeah, I did just want to mention that Olivia does submit a lot of letters to the editor kind of all the time. And of course, they don't all get published. And so she puts those up on our blog just so that people can see what types of articles we're responding to and what those responses look like. So if you go to our blog, all of those entries begin with RE colon and then the title of whatever article it was that she was responding to. So check those out too if you're curious, just to see, maybe you want a format for writing your own letter to the editor. We do have a page on our website for members media hits. So if you ever get published with a letter or an opinion piece or something, or you're quoted in an article on any topics that pertain to our work, please let us know and we will feature you on that page. So one of the ways that we tried to get media attention this year was by conducting a survey using YouGov, which is a polling firm. We surveyed 2,000 Americans online, and it was a short survey. It was 10 questions, but we wanted to gauge Americans' knowledge and perception of demographic trends. So we asked them what the population of the United States is, what the population of the world is, whether each of those populations is growing, shrinking, or stable. And then what we really wanted to dig into was the effect of headlines in the media on people's perceptions of what the actual reality is demographically in this country and globally. And so we asked people whether they had seen headlines about low birth rates, about global population growth, and if so, or I guess we didn't ask them, and then we asked them, are they concerned about either of those things? And then if so, we asked what their top concerns were. So anyway, I'm not going to run through those results because Olivia and I already did that at the World Population Day virtual event that we had back in July. So I've provided a link here to that, to the recording of that presentation. And the first link on the top of the page is a blog post that Olivia wrote about the results, and it has the actual data included in a hyperlink at the end of the page. So, yeah, we've just spent so much time in the last couple of years responding to these claims of a fertility crash and a baby bust and, population extinction, human population extinction. It's most of what we are reading and writing about these days. So Olivia put together a page on our website this year outlining all of the pronatalist actions, proposals, and statements that the Trump administration has made. And there are a lot of them. They're in chronological order, going backwards, I think. And it's a useful page to share with reporters, which we've done a number of times, and they've found it really useful. It has, clips to the different speeches where J.D. Vance, for example, said wacky things. Elon Musk as well. There's plenty of documentation of his strange comments. So I would urge you to take a look at that. And we also are currently collecting signatures and quotes from people at peer organizations and just any professionals who work on population-related subjects. And the open letter will go to U.S. journalists. Olivia will send it out to our media list. And it's basically urging them to stop with this low fertility panic and to shift their reporting focus back over to where we believe it belongs, which is talking about the challenges that continued rapid population growth pose to the environment and to international development and so health, women's empowerment, so many other things. And the erosion of reproductive freedom that we're seeing right now, which obviously Brian and Rebecca will talk much more about during their advocacy discussion later. And so anyway, once we have enough signatures, we'll be sending that around and we'll certainly let you know what kind of a response we get. We have a very active blog. Olivia writes almost all of the posts herself, but we do occasionally have guest posters. But this is just a list of some examples of topics that she covered this year. And yeah, I would urge you to go take a look at the blog. She does a lot of hard work for the rest of us in reading really dense, complex reports, which are coming out all the time. I mean, I think 2 different relevant reports came out this week that she's plowing through and then synthesizing. And, a lot of these reports, and of course, this is one of our primary frustrations as a population organization, a lot of these reports completely ignore population. And so she'll write these blog posts that talk about why these reports should have included talk of population and how ludicrous it is that they didn't. And so anyway, it might be the only place that you read about the population connections to all of this new data that's constantly coming out. Pam mentioned the magazine already. These are the 4 covers of the issues that came out in 2025. Of course, the final one being the December issue, which just came out on Monday. So if you haven't received your hard copy yet, don't worry, you should get it within the next couple of days. The March issue featured an article about the uptick in vasectomy consultations and procedures in the wake of Roe v. Wade being overturned. The June issue featured an article about our global partner organization in Nepal, RUDUC. And the September issue featured an article by Samuel Miller McDonald, who actually incidentally just released his first book called Progress last week, I believe. And I'm kind of starting to work through that. But he wrote a really great article about how these claims of, the collapse of humanity, humans going extinct, are ludicrous, and that we actually are experiencing an actual extinction crisis right now, which is, of course, the 6th mass extinction of species. So yeah, those are the issues, and they're all linked there, so you can see the online versions. We also have a chapter in an encyclopedia, the Encyclopedia of Biodiversity. So this was a chapter that was already written by somebody else a few years ago, and it desperately needed updating. So Hannah, along with her former professor, Justin Stoller, and a former communications fellow of ours, Alex Casey, worked really hard on updating this chapter, and it actually ended up being published at the end of 2024, and we just weren't aware of that, which is why I'm bringing it up now. We found out about it in 2025. So the chapter is linked there. It is behind an academic paywall, so if you aren't able to access the article, you can email Hannah and she'll send you the PDF, and I've got our email addresses at the end of the slideshow. Another item that was updated by Hannah this year was one of her info briefs. She's got a collection of like 10 to 12 page info briefs that are intended for professors to use in their classrooms, just explaining the relationships between population, family planning, climate change, and other environmental challenges. And this one was from 2021, so it was time for it to get some data and statistical updates. So those are done. It's on our website and it's also downloadable as a PDF. So links to that are on this slide. This is a really popular page on our website too. I guess I should mention these info briefs. They're long, so they contain a lot of really rich keywords, which is part of what drives traffic to our website from people doing Google searches. So in addition to these pages just being informative, they actually are also a useful tool for getting people to come to our website and learn about our work. Hannah's primary role here at the organization is to speak with college and university classes around the country. So a couple of times a year, she emails literally thousands of professors and offers her speaking skills. And many of them take her up on it. And so she did 90 presentations this year to different college and university classes. Most of them are virtual, but this is a photo from a recent in-person presentation that she did at Stanislaus State in California. And I've included a testimonial from a professor that I thought was really nice. And we have a lot of those, and I've actually started including these testimonials in the magazine just this year. I've got a spread in each issue, except for the December issue because I didn't have space, with student and professor testimonials. So you can see some of what people take away from the course in those quotes. And if you're in a group, I mean, she'll speak to your group too. So if you have some sort of community group that entertains speakers, get in touch with her and see if she might be a good fit for your group. For the third year running, Hannah taught a summer course this summer at the University of North Carolina at Greensboro, which was open to all UNC students at all of the different campuses. The title of the course is up at the top, and it's 5 weeks long. The students meet every day, 4 days a week for 2 hours. And it's a seminar-based class, and so there's a lot of discussion, and the students really get into these issues. Some of them are familiar with population concepts before coming in, but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are like sustainability students or ecology or biology students, and so this is a way for them to dig into a topic that they might not otherwise be exposed to in their programs. And again, the feedback from this course has just been phenomenal, which is why we keep doing it. And this is a course that we /you sponsor. So we pay the in-state tuition for these students to take this class, which of course serves as an enticement for them to register for it. But then we find, at least from their comments during the class and in their evaluations at the end, that it often does shape their academic and even career trajectory. And Hannah is working with a student from this past summer who asked her to be a thesis advisor for him. So, it's influential, and it's a small class. This year, I think she had 15 students, and this was the first year that we opened it up to graduate students. The previous 2 years, it had been for undergrads only, and that sort of, kicked it up a notch and made it a little bit more of a difficult project, just because when you have undergraduates and graduate students in the same class, there have to be 2 separate syllabi and different assignments and stuff. So it was more work for her, but I think gratifying because the graduate students really appreciated being included and actually outnumbered the undergraduate students. And then also last year, we started doing some United Nations involvement through our special consultative status, which we've had for many years. It's something that we have to renew every 4 years through kind of a long application process. And we've never made good use of it. So we started doing that last year. And this is a picture of Florence giving an oral statement at this year's Commission on Population and Development conference, which was back in April. So we are able to submit written statements in advance of conferences, and those get included in the official conference programs. And then we also are able to give oral statements live at the conferences. So this is Florence doing that this year. This is just a little bit more information about that specific conference. So the written statement that we submitted beforehand was a joint statement with Population Matters, which is an organization in the UK. and Population Media Center here in the United States. And the UN prefers that organizations work together and submit joint statements. So that's why we did that. And then, yeah, Florence gave 2 different oral statements in person, one to a panel on population health and environment, and one to the full conference plenary. We also prepared a fact sheet for her to distribute while she was there, which she eagerly did. And she's not shy or afraid of talking to anybody. She interviewed a lot of different experts for social media. So if you don't already follow us on social media, please do and go back and look at some of that content. It's really, she's very bold in a way that I feel like I am not, and I really admire it. And she gets some great content out of it. So, and we did also host a side event, a virtual side event this year with one of our global partners, the one that's based in Colombia, which is called Women for Conservation, and with 2 staff members of Population Media Center. Bill Ryerson is the founder of the organization, but he's emeritus now. And we have actually already submitted our written statement for this same conference next year. The deadline is in December, so that's already done. And we did submit a joint written statement with those same 2 organizations this year for the Commission on the Status of Women, although we did not attend that conference in person. So speaking of Colombia, and Rebecca is going to talk a lot more about this because she actually went. I did not. But Florence and Hannah, and then 2 people from the advocacy staff, went to Colombia the first week of, well, for my staff, the first couple weeks of November to attend the International Conference on Family Planning in Bogota. This is a conference that happens every couple of years. It's hosted by the Bill and Melinda Gates institution and foundation, I think. And it's a huge convening of family planning advocates, practitioners, policymakers from around the world. It's about 5,000 people who attend this conference. And so again, I'll let Rebecca talk about that. But what I did want to mention is just that Florence and Hannah, after the conference ended, went with the Women for Conservation leaders back to their program site in Santa Marta, which is on the northwestern coast of Colombia, and with them went up into the mountains, into the El Dorado Nature Reserve in the Sierra Nevada. And I wasn't there either, so I'm going to let them tell you more about it at the virtual event that's planned for March. Hannah did write a blog recap, though, which you can read there, and Florence wrote a blog recap about the conference, so I've linked to both of those. But yeah, you'll have to wait for details and more photos and footage then, unless you follow us on social media, in which case you've already seen a lot of it. And also in the world of our global partners, Hannah visited all 4 of our Guatemalan global partners back in March. She was there for a couple of weeks. So this is the 4 organizations listed. Each of these link to a blog post about the site visit. And then at the bottom of each of those blog posts is a link to the corresponding virtual event that she did with staff leaders at those organizations. So if you missed those when they were live, you can see the recordings now. And she got a ton of great footage there too. And she actually did kind of a takeover of the social media accounts. So there's a lot of great photos and videos if you look back on our Instagram account. And here are the links to all of our social media accounts. One thing that Florence has set out to do this year is to become more active on LinkedIn. So she started a monthly newsletter back in April, and it's garnered a lot of new followers and a lot of great engagement. It's a platform that we haven't really used very much in the past. So that's become a fun new place for us to connect with people. And just the one last thing I wanted to mention is that at the request of our board, actually, Florence created a 3.5-minute About Us video, which is on YouTube, and then it's also on our website. And I won't play it because I know that I've probably gone over already, but it's great. She at the staff retreat that we had in June of this year, she interviewed a bunch of department heads and filmed us doing various activities and talking about the work that the organization does. And I think it's just a nice way for people who want something more than a bulleted list of our programs and accomplishments to actually get a real sense of what we do. So that's available for viewing and sharing. And as promised, this is the final slide that includes our email addresses. So like I said, Stephanie will be sending these out later, and you can get in touch with us if there's anything you'd like to suggest or ask us about. We would love to hear from you. And that is all I've got. And I look forward to the Q&A a little bit later. And I guess I'll just pass it right on to Brian. He's next. I was expecting Stephanie to come on. Sorry for the weird pause. Brian, over to you.
Thanks. And there's so much good stuff happening both at the organization and in the world that it makes what's happening with our government so much more infuriating and depressing. So I guess that's my job, is to be depressing for a little bit before being hopeful. But since January, what's been going on with our government has been both chaotic and terrifying in a way. Starting in January, when the new administration froze foreign assistance, reimposed the global gag rule, moved to eliminate the U.S. Agency for International Development, and just continuing on through the year where they are trying to eliminate a lot of Title X funding, attempting to defund Planned Parenthood domestically. More on the global side, they released something they're calling the America First Global Health Strategy, which, according to early drafts that got leaked from the State Department, looked to freeze NGOs completely out of the provision of global health, and also shift our assistance largely, almost completely, out of Africa and into Latin America and Asia, while also using our foreign aid dollars and global health dollars as a way to pressure foreign governments to eliminate their own laws guaranteeing the right to abortion. They're demanding abortion data in return for grants to fight HIV. They're trying to get countries to sign agreements that would provide all kinds of personal health data to this administration. And now we're expecting sometime relatively soon the administration to announce a new and vastly expanded version of a global gag rule that would apply to all foreign assistance except military aid, and would also begin to apply it to both foreign governments and multilateral agencies, which has not been subject to these policies in the past. And increase the number of issues that it would apply to. So historically, it's been about abortion, provision, and speech. And this would go to what they're terming gender ideology, which they don't define, and which seems to be a singular focus of this administration more than anyone else. And also to anything related to DEI. And it's hard to imagine how you do that when you're talking about assistance in different parts of the world. But just yesterday, at least, we finally got information that the State Department's finally taking on a serious problem and that they're banning the use of the Calibri font because it's too woke. So I think we got, this is the kind of things we're doing that our government's doing. We did some polling in the spring, which found that solid majorities of American voters agreed with the idea that U.S. investments in family planning were important to improving global health, increasing education and economic opportunities for girls and women, decreasing poverty, and building more stable and secure communities and countries. And that also opposed the freeze on global health funding. Both of those got 58% of American voters on our side. So on this issue, like on many other things, we have a government which is not reflecting the will of the people who elected it. So that in some ways is it's outrageous in a lot of ways, but also is, I think, in my view, a reason for hope. We've been working with our allies in Congress, in the House and Senate, to push back against a lot of these things. Our allies are in the minority, so it's been a struggle. But legislation that would permanently end the global gag rule, the Global Health Empowerment and Rights Act, or the Global HER Act, is pending in both the House and Senate. Legislation to ensure U.S. support of the United Nations Population Fund has been introduced in the House and is being introduced in the Senate today by Senator Jeanne Shaheen. There's legislation in both the House and Senate that would block the administration's plan to destroy more than $10 million worth of contraceptives. It's unclear exactly how much. We know there's about $10 million worth of contraceptives that has been previously purchased by taxpayers sitting in a Belgian warehouse, because of Belgian law, the administration has not been allowed to destroy it. But I think their plan is to just leave it there until it's no longer usable. The legislation pending in the House and Senate, the Saving Lives and Taxpayer Dollars Act, would require that those contraceptives and any other supplies purchased for foreign assistance be distributed where they belong. These were all purchased during the Biden administration for distribution largely in sub-Saharan Africa. It would make an enormous difference, but this administration wants to just completely withdraw from that entire field. So I will say on the Population Connection Action Fund side of our work, the Action Fund has already endorsed more than 60 candidates for Congress in both the House and Senate. A lot of current members of Congress who are leaders and champions for working on family planning and population issues around the world, including two who have been members of the organization in the past. Both Senator Hickenlooper from Colorado and Congressman Don Beyer from Virginia have been members of Population Connection or its predecessor organization, ZPG. We're endorsing challengers in a lot of races where there's a chance to replace an opponent of these with a supporter. And if we're looking for hope, we can look at what's happened in 2025 in elections. I read a fact yesterday, which is surprising, that of all of the Republican legislative seats up in 2025, both state and federal, Democrats have flipped 61% of those. And reproductive freedom and access to reproductive health care remains a key motivating factor for voters. We saw that in Virginia in November and in New Jersey. And we're seeing it in all of these special elections that are happening. In Virginia, for example, one of the main issues that Democrats ran on was promoting a constitutional amendment to guarantee reproductive rights in the Commonwealth of Virginia. They flipped 13 seats in the state legislature. They went from a majority of 51 to 49 to a majority of 64 to 36, and elected a governor by the widest margin in more than 2 decades. So I think there's a lot of reasons to be hopeful. Rebecca's going to give you a little bit more of those, but I hope you will take a look at the candidates that the Action Fund has endorsed on the Action Fund website. And if you're inclined to support that work, I hope you will consider doing so. With that, I will turn it over to Rebecca to talk more about the work in the field.
Hi, everyone. I think, Stephanie, are you going to turn my video on? No rush.
Hi, Rebecca. Yes, let me go ahead and do that. Sorry about that.
Oh, no rush at all. I'm still sharing my screen.
Perfect. Okay, should be good now.
All right. Just give me a second. All right. Hi, everyone. So nice to be with you. Thanks for joining us for this event today. I'm going to talk about our field work this year. which was great. I'm really excited about the work that we've done this year. As Brian just talked about, it's been a really, really tough year politically. It's been a really hard year to work on the issues we work on. And of course, it's been the hardest for folks who are directly impacted by the terrible policies of the Trump administration, including all of the people around the world who have lost access to contraceptives and other reproductive health care and HIV medicine. So that's all been really hard to sit with this year, but we've been really encouraged by the really strong resistance that has once again cropped up to stand against all of the terrible things the Trump administration have done over the last 11 months. So I wanted to start by talking about some of the great resistance we've done through digital action this year. And this actually is a tribute to all of you. All of our members and activists have really stepped up this year and really responded whenever we've put out a call to contact your legislators, whether it's in support to sign on as co-sponsors of the Global Her Act, or to tell your elected officials that you in no way think that contraceptives that are already paid for and are viable should be left to be destroyed. You all have really stood up, and you can see on this chart, you can see last year, uh, there were about a little over 1,000 submissions, so people who filled out our action forms. And this year we've had about 6,700. And last year there were about 1,800 messages sent to legislators. And this year we can see we've had over 16,000. So that's a real jump. Of course, that's correlated with all of the terrible things that have been being done, but I just really wanted to highlight that and really applaud all of you for really taking action. You can see on the right there's a bar graph where the most actions were taken in April, and that coincided with a bunch of different things happening in the global reproductive health and the domestic reproductive health space. I also wanted to show these charts. On the left, you can see a little wheel chart of the top 10 forms that were submitted or the top 10 actions that were taken. And in the light blue, that highlights the action around the supporting the Saving Lives and Taxpayer Dollars Act, which is the bill that would prevent the destruction of commodities like the contraceptives that are sitting in the warehouse in Belgium. And I think I mean, we've certainly shared this action numerous times. Our thinking is we'll just keep asking people to push back against this, until that's no longer a viable thing to do. So that's certainly why we've gotten so many submissions. But I think also this issue really angers all of you, and you all find it as egregious as we do. And all of all the terrible things they've done, this to me really strikes me as one of the cruelest things they've proposed to do, because it's so unnecessary and it's so wasteful, and it's just destroying supplies that could go to saving lives and to making lives so much better. So really appreciate all of you doing that. We've also engaged in quite a bit of on-the-ground resistance here in Washington, D.C. Our biggest effort was tabling at the World Pride Festival, which was held here in D.C. in June. We had a booth. We talked to tons of festival goers from around the world, from all different backgrounds and identities, who were just so glad, like we were, to be in a safe, inclusive space where people all supported reproductive rights and reproductive freedom and LGBTQ plus rights and human rights in general. So it was really lovely to talk to so many people and kind of for a weekend at least in the city that we live in, be insulated from all of the terrible things happening otherwise happening in the city. We also gave out a lot of swag. I like to shout out John Seeger, who had the great idea that we come up with a giveaway that's a little cardboard handheld fan that says Repro Rights Fan on the front with our logo on the back. And people at all of the events we've been to this year have just loved those. So shout out to John for the creativity. This is a photo of myself and Marion and our national field director, Lauren Salmieri, in front of our booth. We all are smiling very broadly, and I think that reflects how we all felt about being part of that event. I won't read through these, but you can just kind of look through the other events we've participated or partnered on this year. They include Saving USAID rallies, Saving Healthcare rallies, the Trans Day of Visibility rally, rallying at the Supreme Court, attending a closing rally for a vigil around protecting Medicaid, and doing some turnout on Capitol Hill with Planned Parenthood during the markup of the House bill, which eventually became the one big beautiful bill. So we've been doing our best to support other groups leading the charge on the resistance movement here in the U.S. And we'll continue to do so into next year. As Marion talked about a little bit, another wonderful opportunity to escape for some of us happened in early November in Bogota, Colombia, where Hannah and Florence on the comms team, as well as Isabel and I on the field team, were able to attend the conference, and we manned a booth in the conference's exhibit hall. In November, and it was great. It was a wonderful experience. It was so lovely to be out of the United States, quite frankly, and really lovely to be outside of DC and just to be surrounded by so many like-minded people who all care so deeply about reproductive freedom and who have persisted and are continuing to work with smiles on their face and run their programs despite being, having programs slashed by the U.S. foreign aid freeze or the dissolution of USAID. And many we talked with are willing to be spokespeople for us and, do events with us and share stories so that we can uplift all of the powerful work they're doing and the life-saving work they're doing around family planning and reproductive health. Another incredible part, what I thought was the most incredible part of the trip is that the four of us had the opportunity to attend 2 site visits in Bogota. Hannah, Isabel, and I were able to go on a visit to Kennedy Hospital, which is a public hospital in the city. And we had a tour of their labor and delivery wing, and we're able to speak with OBGYNs, obstetrics and gynecology staff at that hospital about their labor and delivery programs, their abortion program, their abortion care program, and their breastfeeding program. And they're just Colombia since 2022 in 2022 really liberalized their abortion law. So now abortion is available in Colombia to anyone who needs it for any reason through 24 weeks of gestation. And the hospital, the staff at the hospital just talked about how they are committed to providing stigma-free abortion care to anyone who comes in who needs it from the age of 10 to 50, and making sure people get the care that they need. They also are committed and do education, contraception education with 100% of the patients who come in. And the goal is for folks who want contraception and say that they want to be on a method of contraception. Their goal is for 99% of those folks to leave the hospital with the method of their choice. And they're caring for laboring patients as well. I'll show a photo in a minute. You can see us all in scrubs. We were wandering through the labor and delivery ward, so we were actually hearing people give birth, which is, I think, whether or not you have or have not given birth is a very visceral, real experience. There was a lot of pain because giving birth is painful, but also the one thing that sort of struck me as not um, ideal is that there's a shortage of anesthesia medication in Colombia. So sometimes the country has a very high C-section rate because women are often opting to have a C-section rather than endure the pain of childbirth without anesthesia. But the care being provided to everyone was so clear. They also do comprehensive STI testing for syphilis and for HIV, and run this really robust breastfeeding support program. We walked through a room that had all up-to-date lactation equipment, lactation counselors, and they also have this very robust breast milk donation program that goes to babies in the NICU. So it was just really, really incredible. It was so inspiring. It provided a template of where the United States should be and where we want to go. And then Florence had a chance to go to Jorge Eliezer Gaitan Hospital, another public hospital in Bogota, that is really at the forefront of providing abortion care. They perform 2,000 abortions a year, and she was able to spend time with Dr. Jorge Eduardo Caro, who was really instrumental in advocating for the 2022 liberalized abortion law, and is just a remarkable person and doctor who really puts at the center of his work the women he works with. He had a great quote that said, he and his colleagues believe first the woman, second the woman, third the woman. So just incredible commitment to reproductive freedom and to treating people with rights and dignity. So that was, and Florence captured a lot of that content on social media, so you can check out content from both of those visits. Here's just a couple of quick photos. This is our team with, from left to right, Isabella and Sarah Lara, who are the directors of Women for Conservation, which is one of our global partner organizations in Colombia that Marian mentioned. So it was great. It was my first time meeting both of them. It was great to spend time with them and get to know them a little bit more. Here's a photo of the four of us on our team with Dr. Michelle Dubon, who's the medical director for Wings, which is another of our global partners based in Guatemala. They do reproductive health education and service provision with women in the rural parts of Guatemala. Also, my first time meeting Dr. Dubon, and that was really wonderful to see her in person and hear more about the amazing work she's doing. And here's one of my favorite photos from the trip. Hannah, Isabel, and I in scrubs, looking like the doctors, which we are not, but we were very thrilled to be there as advocates. And then our, last but certainly not least, what has been our primary focus for the second half of this year, which is getting ready to relaunch our Fight for Her campaign in 2026. We will be having organizers on the ground leading efforts in Tucson, Arizona, Raleigh, North Carolina, New Hampshire, and Las Vegas, Nevada. So we've been working over the last couple of months really hard to build up our field team. Our first hire was Isabel Song, who you can't see, but she's on this call. Isabel is wonderful. She joined as our organizing manager in September and has already brought so much to the team. She comes from a number of cycles of electoral organizing, working on congressional races in California and managing tons of organizers in the western region of the country. And she just has wonderful ideas and a great energy and is going to be really pivotal to the work we do next year. And this week has been very exciting. We hired 2 organizers on the ground. Kat Stratford is going to be our organizer in Tucson, and Kyle Devassier is going to be our organizer in Las Vegas. They both come with lots of organizing experience, doing organizing in the community around healthcare, union rights, and much more. So we're very thrilled to have them. And we'll be working really hard over the next 2 weeks to hopefully hire our final two organizers for North Carolina and New Hampshire. Not going to talk about it too much, but just noting we did some focus groups with Lake Research, which is a polling firm, earlier this year, just to gauge the attitudes of 18 to 25-year-olds in these four locations around, whether they would be ready to engage in activism. So that gave us sort of some useful data as we go into the field. And for the rest of the year, we'll be working to hire the remainder of our team and hit the ground in 2026. And to end on a hopeful and kind of funny note, as Brian said, the thing that gives him hope gives me hope too. We've had, as hard as this year has been, we've had such great wins at the ballot. And I think another thing that gives me hope is just how many people have banded together this year and organized and worked so effectively to elect Zohran Mamdani and Abigail Spanberger and so many more. And those candidates are so impressive and inspiring. But the people who I think are most inspiring are all the people who've volunteered for their campaigns and worked on their campaigns and knocked on doors and made phone calls. Like so many of you. So I think that's what keeps me going and keeps me fired up for the next year. So thank you so much. Happy to answer any questions and thanks for joining us today.
All right, thanks so much, everyone. As usual, I'm always just really happy to get to be here and listen about all of the amazing things that are being done throughout the year. Obviously, we're all working towards specific goals and in our own individual departments, and we have vague ideas of what's going on outside. But it's really nice to get to sit down and just really listen to such a wonderful recap. So many things happened this year, so many advancements, so many accomplishments. So it's really great to see. Thanks, everybody. We've got a few minutes for questions. So a lot of you have voiced already in the chat some questions, and we'll get to as many as we have time for. And I want to just go ahead and get started since we don't have that much time. The first question I was thinking about maybe waiting to ask until a little bit later into the Q&A, but I think it might just be a perfect one to actually start with. And this is a question that was voiced in the chat earlier, just asking about the effectiveness of our programs in terms of evidence. So I know we're running a lot of initiatives where we've got specific programs that span a really wide range of subjects and themes and pursuits. But what evidence do we have that our programs are working and functioning properly? So I thought we could go around and each answer that individually, starting with Pam.
Sure. And I'm just putting a link in the chat. We do, our program continually does evaluation of what the teachers think of our workshops, our materials, how they're using them. This link takes you to some of the highlights of the last report we did. Every 2 to 3 years, we put out a report, but every year we're surveying the teachers who come to our workshops to find out how are they using them, how many of our materials are they using, how many students are they using them with. We know that many teachers use the materials for years after they attend a workshop too. So in addition to that evaluation, at the end of every workshop, we get feedback. We get feedback from all of the professors of education who invite us into their classes. So we're continually monitoring, and we're also asking them about what they thought of the people presenting. So that would be our staff, but also our volunteers. And then we share with the volunteers and make sure that we maintain a really high quality of what we do. But bottom line is the vast majority of teachers who attend the workshops say that they're superior to other professional development workshops for teachers that they attend. They think that the materials are motivational, that they fit their their goals and standards for their classroom. Good pedagogy is used, and that they think it's important for students to get this information. We don't survey the students directly, we do it through the teachers, but teachers also tell us that they see how, just in the level of discussion, that it's changing students' attitudes about the issues. Many of them come in not knowing much at all to begin with. So I think they really appreciate that. But yeah, you can check out that report for more stats and infographics on the effectiveness of the workshops.
Perfect. Thank you for speaking more into that. Marianne?
Yeah, I mean, kind of jumping off of what Pam just said in terms of your work, Hannah, obviously we get testimonials from professors and students who talk about how influential your presentations are for them. And same kind of thing like what Pam just described. I mean, I know you get emails from professors afterwards saying that students continued asking questions, and the discussion continued long after your presentation ended and you logged off of Zoom. So we're changing people's minds and perceptions slowly, one person by person. But it's the people who are likely to actually become involved in this issue professionally, and it's really important for them to know about or to have population literacy, to use a pop ed term, because otherwise they end up becoming environmentalists who don't think about population. So I think our voice is really important there. And then in terms of our publications and media, we know that journalists are not talking about population growth and it's the challenges that it presents as much as we would like them to. And often when it is mentioned, it's because of us. And so, just in our conversations that we've had with reporters, I should have mentioned too, because I don't think Pam did mention it, that she was also interviewed this year by the Swedish public broadcasting, something in Sweden, and it was an in-person sit-down interview. And there are people out there that are interested in this subject, but for a lot of them, I think they feel like this isn't what people want to hear about right now. And so I think just continuing to kind of beat the drum. And actually, right before this Zoom started, like a half hour before, we found out that one of the reporters who I actually spoke to for an NPR story last month, he and his co-reporter were about to host a live Reddit discussion about this very thing, about reporters sort of overlooking population challenges in favor of low fertility. And so Olivia and Florence on my team have been kind of multitasking during this entire presentation, writing on that thread. But yeah, I definitely have talked to reporters who say that they're very curious about this topic, but that they just don't hear anything about it, and so don't really know what to report. And yeah, I mean, obviously, in terms of like getting published, like you can just see when we do. So I think, yeah, for comms, that's probably the stuff to highlight.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, I'll kick it over to Rebecca and then Brian.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the work that we do is kind of a long game. We've been working not to depress people, but just to sort of give some context. We've been working to permanently ban the global gag rule for, I don't know, over 15 years or longer. So a lot of the work we do is sort of laying the groundwork, educating members of Congress, educating activists and mobilizing them. But there are shorter term gains. I mean, Brian will talk about this more, I'm sure, but if we get to, the day after the 2026 midterms and a good chunk of our endorsed candidates have won, we feel pretty strongly as though we can claim some credit for that. Last year in the 2024 general election, we knocked on close to 140,000 doors, talking to people in a bunch of communities across the country. Encouraging them, either talking to them in a nonpartisan capacity, just talking about the importance of voting, or specifically, knocking in favor of of candidates and telling people specifically to vote for these people. So I think those things are measurable. Also, since starting the Fight for Her campaign, which is the campaign I talked about at the end, in 2017, we've engaged, close to 100,000 people through petition signatures and attendees at events and volunteers. So we're really reaching a wide swath of people, and we're the only organization really doing grassroots organizing on this topic of international family planning and global reproductive health. And another measure, if by the end of next year we have 100 or so really strong volunteers in each, in these four places combined, even that will be a good mark of work well done, and that we're really developing leaders who care about these issues, who will then go on to train other people and cultivate other people to join the fight too.
Great, thank you. And finally, Brian?
Yeah, I would add that, one of the benefits that the Action Fund gives us is the ability to engage with candidates before they're elected, and get them thinking and talking about these global issues before they're sworn in and are buried under a heap of issues that they haven't yet thought about. Um, so, talking to people who are just starting their campaigns and looking for organizations that might support them. A couple of years ago, I had an early meeting with Sarah McBride from Delaware and talked about the importance of U.S. investment in these programs. And now she's on the Foreign Affairs Committee, where she's an outspoken champion of what we care about in the minority, but that's not going to last forever. And so we're going to have people in Congress who know us, who know these issues, and are well positioned to push for change when we need it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really great to hear, especially also as an organization working on so many different interconnected challenges. Yeah, thanks for speaking more into the kind of concrete metrics surrounding, the effectiveness of this work. We've only got 2 minutes left. Unfortunately, there's so many questions I want to ask and topics I'd love to dive into. But I just want to get to a couple, perhaps if we have time, that are voiced here in the chat live. And the first is just a direct question to Pam, asking, with over 700 workshops for teachers this year, which methods have proven to be most effective in terms of enhancing overall understanding of population education?
Yeah, well, since the program was founded 50 years ago, the methods have always been hands-on, experiential. So we have groups, do these role-playing group simulations. They're doing problem solving, data analysis in small groups and pairs. So that's the important thing, is to get them active so that what they're learning is really memorable, and they remember not just the facts, but they're remembering the experience of the discussion, of the role play. So that's been something that's worked for us for a long time, and we'll continue to have it, be central to the curriculum that we develop.
Thank you so much. And with the 1 minute we've got left, there's a question just asking about our overall goals for 2026 and what we'd like to achieve and bring in. I'd like to ask each of you individually that question, but since we don't have time, I'm just going to kick it over to Marian to close this out. What do you think?
Well, we do have a strategic plan actually, which ends in 2026. So we'll continue working toward achieving those goals that we set for ourselves a couple of years ago. I think for the comms team, we definitely continue to have our work cut out for us, trying to sway the conversation around pronatalism and stemming the horrible tide of very unhelpful rhetoric coming from people like Elon Musk, who just have so much influence and are just so deeply wrong. And yeah, so that will definitely be part of our focus. I know we are working with an outside researcher on creating some like peer-reviewed journal articles that link population growth to various environmental challenges. I'm not going to say too much more about that now, just because we won't have anything to show you until next year, but that is something that we're working on right now. And then, yeah, and then just more of the same. I mean, you know, I think we would all say that what we do for a reason, and it works well, and we're, you know, seasoned professionals. And so we stick with what works for the most part.
Great. And there's so much to look forward to in 2026. As Brian mentioned, I mean, there's a lot of horrible things happening at the governmental level, but also many amazing and beautiful things happening, more locally, and especially with our global partners and around the world. I think that we can all agree that progress is also being made. So on that note, we will end things here today. Thank you all so much for joining. We will follow up with an email answering any questions that weren't answered here live, and just following up on next steps. So thanks very much, everyone, and have a great end of the year and New Year's. We'll see you next year.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.